For 400 years, the greatest temple complex on Earth lay buried beneath vines and roots, its towers slowly torn apart by trees. Entire cities, home to hundreds of thousands, vanished so completely that explorers walked past 65-meter pyramids without realizing they were looking at human architecture. Today, we'll see the capital that was richer than Rome, erased in a single decade. We'll descend into tombs sealed beneath jungle for over 1,000 years, their contents still untouched. We'll reveal the fortress so hidden that conquerors searched for centuries and never found it, though locals knew its location all along. And in 2013, scientists aimed a laser into the canopy and discovered something impossible. An entire urban network, invisible from the ground, that had been waiting in silence for 800 years. At the end, you'll learn how a single scan in 2012 rewrote everything we thought we knew about one of history's greatest empires. Ready? We begin our descent. What if the largest urban center of the medieval world simply vanished into the emerald shadows of the forest for 4 centuries? Angkor Wat stands in northern Cambodia as a colossal stone ghost, a sprawling religious complex that once served as the beating heart of the Khmer Empire before it was surrendered to the relentless advance of the tropical canopy in the 15th century. While the central towers remained known to local monks, the true scale of this massive stone metropolis stayed hidden from the outside world, buried under a sea of teak and banyan trees until the mid-19th century. The sheer scale of the site covers more than 400 square kilometers, a territory larger than modern-day Paris. Yet for hundreds of years, its intricate galleries and soaring lotus-shaped towers were invisible to anyone standing just a few hundred meters away. The architecture reflects a precise celestial alignment, designed as a terrestrial model of the cosmic mountain Meru. But the surrounding jungle had its own design for these sandstone walls. Massive roots of silk cotton trees, thick as ancient pythons, have spent centuries slowly deconstructing the masonry, wedging themselves into the smallest cracks and lifting multi-ton blocks off their foundations. The gray stone is stained with velvet green moss and orange lichen, creating a shifting camouflage that blends the man-made silhouettes into the chaotic geometry of the vines. Construction on this massive scale was completed around 1150, requiring the labor of hundreds of thousands of workers and the movement of millions of sandstone blocks from quarries over 50 kilometers away. Every surface is covered in intricate carvings of celestial dancers and epic battles. Yet the silent corridors now echo only with the calls of gibbons and the rustle of leaves. The sophisticated irrigation system, a network of canals and reservoirs that once supported a population of nearly 1 million people, eventually failed or became choked with silt, allowing the forest to reclaim the land. Scientists using laser scanning technology have recently discovered that the visible temples are only a fraction of what once existed, as the jungle floor hides the footprints of wooden houses and bustling markets that have long since rotted away. The pressure of the roots is so immense that removing the vegetation now would cause many of the structures to collapse instantly, trapping the stones in a permanent, suffocating embrace with the living timber. This creates a paradox where the very force that destroyed the city is now the only thing holding its skeletal remains together. How much of the Khmer legacy still lies undisturbed beneath the roots of the deepest forest? Over 70,000 stone structures remained hidden beneath a suffocating blanket of tropical greenery for nearly 1,000 years. Tikal sits deep within the Petén Basin of northern Guatemala, where the density of the rainforest is so absolute that it managed to erase one of the largest urban centers of the pre-Columbian world from every map. This was once a sprawling metropolis of over 100,000 people, a place of immense political power and architectural ambition that suddenly fell silent in the 9th century. When explorers finally penetrated the thick wall of vegetation in 1848, they found that the jungle had not just surrounded the city, but had physically claimed it, with massive roots splitting limestone blocks and vines weaving through royal chambers. The scale of the site is difficult to comprehend from the ground, because the forest floor is a labyrinth of shadows and humidity where the sun rarely touches the earth. Giant ceiba trees and mahogany groves create a secondary ceiling that obscures the true height of the monuments, making the city appear as a series of strange, moss-covered hills rather than man-made mountains. The most striking feature of this lost capital is Temple 4, a limestone giant rising 65 meters toward the sky. Its base is anchored in the dark dampness of the jungle floor, but its crest pierces the emerald canopy, standing as the only part of the city that remained visible to the outside world during its long centuries of isolation. From the top of these pyramids, the view reveals a sea of endless green, broken only by the sharp gray tips of other temples, looking like stone islands in a vast vegetable ocean. The limestone surfaces are weathered by centuries of tropical rain, giving the structures a skeletal, organic texture that blends perfectly with the surrounding bark and foliage. Archaeologists have discovered that the city was not built on a grid, but followed the natural contours of the limestone ridges, connected by massive raised causeways called sakbiab, that are now buried under layers of decaying leaves and soil. The silence of the ruins is punctuated only by the guttural roars of howler monkeys, sounds that echo through the empty plazas where kings once performed bloodletting rituals to ensure the rising of the sun. Even today, with modern LiDAR technology revealing thousands of previously unknown buildings nearby, the vast majority of Tikal remains unexcavated, trapped in a slow-motion struggle between human masonry and the relentless growth of the rainforest. The weight of the vegetation is so immense that it actually compresses the stone, holding some buildings together while simultaneously forcing others to collapse under the sheer mass of the roots. Acoustic engineers have found that the placement of the temples creates a perfect natural amplifier. A person speaking in a normal voice at the top of the Lost World Pyramid can be heard clearly by someone standing hundreds of meters away at the base of the Great Plaza. Spanish conquistadors marched within a few miles of these stone walls for decades, without ever realizing a massive metropolitan center lay hidden just behind the curtain of mahogany and cedar trees. Palenque, located in the humid foothills of Chiapas, Mexico, achieved such a perfect state of camouflage that it effectively vanished from human consciousness for nearly 1,000 years. When the first European explorers finally stumbled upon these ruins in the 18th century, they initially struggled to distinguish the architecture from the landscape, believing the steep, vine-covered pyramids were merely unusually shaped natural hills. The jungle here does not just surround the city, it has integrated into the very limestone of the structures, with massive roots acting like slow-motion tentacles that both hold the temples together and systematically tear them apart. The Temple of the Inscriptions rises 75 feet above the forest floor, yet its gray stone surface is often entirely obscured by the vibrant, suffocating green of the rainforest canopy. Deep within the humid shadows of the site, the air remains heavy and still, trapped by a ceiling of dense foliage that filters the sunlight into a dim, emerald glow. Even today, the scale of what remains hidden defies conventional archaeological expectations, as modern LiDAR scanning reveals that the visible ruins represent only a tiny fraction of a sprawling urban complex. As of 2023, Researchers estimate that less than 10% of the city's total area has been cleared of vegetation, leaving over 1,000 structures still buried under centuries of accumulated earth and decaying organic matter. The most significant breakthrough in the site's history occurred in 1952, when Alberto Ruz Lullier noticed a series of holes in a floor slab that led to the discovery of a hidden stairway choked with rubble. At the base of this secret passage lay the undisturbed sarcophagus of King Pakal the Great, a ruler who transformed Palenque into a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering and sophisticated art before the city was abruptly abandoned around the year 800. This tomb had remained silent and invisible while empires rose and fell above it, protected by the sheer density of the Chiapas wilderness. The intricate carvings on the sarcophagus lid are so well preserved they look as if the craftsmen finished them yesterday. Yet they were sealed away by a civilization that walked out of its homes and never returned. Every year, the aggressive growth of the jungle attempts to reclaim the cleared plazas, sending shoots and vines to wrap around the ornate roof combs and delicate stucco reliefs. Scientists are currently tracking hundreds of mounds that appear to be residential blocks, all still encased in a thick layer of tropical forest that refuses to yield its secrets. The sheer volume of unexplored territory means that the most important records of this lost society are likely still resting beneath the roots of ancient trees, waiting for the forest to be peeled back once again. The Spanish conquerors spent decades scouring the Andes for the fabled gold of El Dorado. Yet they never realized that a true imperial treasure remained hidden directly above their heads, shielded by a curtain of clouds and dense tropical canopy. Machu Picchu stands at 2,430 meters above sea level, a silent stone citadel that vanished from all official records for over 3 centuries after the fall of the Inca Empire in 1572. While the colonial administration mapped every valley and exploited every mine they could reach, this massive architectural complex remained invisible to the outside world, effectively erased by the rapid growth of the mountain jungle. The Emerald Forest reclaimed the steep terraces and granite plazas so thoroughly that the city became a ghost, existing only in the quiet whispers of local families who lived in its shadow. When the American explorer Hiram Bingham finally climbed these slopes in 1911, he expected to find a modest ruin, but instead encountered a sprawling labyrinth of temples and houses that the jungle had kept in a state of suspended animation. The mystery lies not just in why the Incas abandoned such a magnificent stronghold, but in how a site of this scale remained a total secret from the Spanish crown, despite being located only 80 kilometers from the colonial capital of Cusco. Thick vines and massive ferns acted as a natural security system, weaving through the dry stone masonry and obscuring the distinct silhouettes of the watchman's hut and the Temple of the Sun from anyone looking up from the Urubamba River Valley below. For 300 years, the local Quechua farmers grew crops on the lower fringes of the ruins, yet they maintained a collective silence that kept the city safe from looters and colonial tax collectors. The moisture of the cloud forest created a microclimate where stone and vegetation fused into a single gray and green entity, making it impossible to distinguish man-made walls from the natural cliffs at a distance. Even today, the surrounding peaks of Huayna Picchu and Machu Picchu Mountain act as jagged sentinels, trapping mist in the ravines to ensure the citadel remains partially veiled for most of the morning. Modern satellite imagery reveals just how precarious its position is, perched on a narrow ridge between 2 fault lines where the Amazon basin meets the high Andes. The city was never lost to those who lived nearby, but it was intentionally hidden from history, serving as a silent sanctuary while the world around it changed forever. It remains a testament to the forest's power to swallow civilization whole, preserving a royal estate in a tomb of living green until the moment it was ready to be seen again. The granite blocks, polished to a mirror sheen, still hold the chill of the high-altitude air, untouched by the fires and destruction that leveled almost every other Inca site in Peru. Each sunrise reveals the sharp edges of the Intihuatana stone emerging from the fog, a ritual sundial that continued to track the seasons in total isolation, while the empire it served crumbled into myth. The sheer verticality of the surrounding cliffs ensured that no horse or heavy artillery could ever reach these heights, leaving the city to age in a vacuum of silence and shadows. Today, the encroaching jungle is still a constant threat, with roots constantly seeking cracks in the mortarless walls, reminding us that the forest only ever loans this space to the light. The true scale of the site is only visible when the clouds break, revealing a jagged crown of stone that seems to float between the earth and the sky. In 1972, Colombian tomb robbers trekking through the dense Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta mountains stumbled upon a series of stone steps rising out of the mud, leading to a discovery that archaeological maps had missed for centuries. This is Ciudad Perdida, the lost city of the Tairona people, a massive urban complex founded around the year 800, making it at least 650 years older than the famous Machu Picchu in Peru. For 500 years, the site remained completely invisible to the outside world, swallowed by a relentless emerald tide of tropical vegetation that erased every trace of its existence from human memory. The architecture consists of a sophisticated network of 169 stone terraces carved directly into the mountain ridges, connected by a labyrinth of tiled paths and circular plazas that seem to float above the clouds. Looking down from the highest platforms, the scale of the engineering becomes apparent as the gray stone structures contrast sharply against the deep, humid greens of the jungle canopy. The Tairona built this city without the use of the wheel or pack animals, transporting massive slabs of rock up steep inclines to create a vertical metropolis that once housed thousands of inhabitants. Rainfall in this region is intense, yet the ancient drainage systems still function today, preventing the steep terraces from sliding down the mountainside despite the constant moisture and root growth. Archaeologists believe the city was abandoned during the Spanish conquest, not because of direct warfare, but likely due to the silent arrival of European diseases that decimated the population before a single soldier reached these heights. Even today, the location remains one of the most inaccessible archaeological sites on the planet, requiring a grueling 4 to 6 day trek through river crossings and muddy climbs to reach the first of the 1,200 stone steps. The surrounding jungle is so thick that modern satellite imaging often struggles to pierce the canopy, suggesting that dozens of smaller satellite settlements may still lie buried under the vines and soil nearby. Indigenous descendants of the Tairona, the Kogi and Wiwa people, claim they always knew the city was there and visited it in secret long before the looters arrived, referring to it as Teyuna, the heart of the world. The stones are covered in a fine layer of moss and lichen, giving the entire complex a muted, ghostly appearance that shifts between shades of silver and charcoal depending on the angle of the sun. Clouds frequently roll through the plazas at eye level, momentarily obscuring the terraces and then revealing them again like a recurring vision. This place exists in a state of permanent tension between human construction and the overwhelming power of the rainforest to reclaim its territory. Reaching the summit provides a view of a civilization that vanished so completely that its name was forgotten for half a millennium, leaving only these silent platforms as witnesses to a lost era. The journey to the site involves ascending over 2,000 meters through a landscape where the air is thick with the scent of damp earth and tropical blooms. Portuguese merchants of the 16th century described this metropolis as wealthier and more magnificent than Rome. Yet today, its golden palaces have been replaced by a silent labyrinth of boulders and dense tropical thicket. Hampi stands as the skeletal remains of the Vijayanagara Empire, a city that once commanded the fate of southern India with a population exceeding 500,000 people. In its prime, it was the second largest city on the entire planet, a sprawling urban center where diamonds were traded in open street markets like common grain. The sudden collapse of this civilization in 1565 remains a haunting transformation, as a city that took 200 years to build was systematically dismantled and set ablaze in just 6 months. What remains is a surreal landscape where 4,000 hectares of architectural mastery are slowly being reclaimed by the earth. Massive granite boulders, some the size of multi-story buildings, surround the ruins, creating a natural fortress that failed to protect the capital from its final siege. The scale of the site is overwhelming, covering 41 square kilometers of territory, where more than 1,600 distinct monuments still stand in varying states of decay. Colossal stone pillars, carved from single blocks of rock, rise from the forest floor, their surfaces covered in intricate reliefs of elephants and mythical creatures that seem to watch from the shadows of the trees. The vegetation here acts as both a destroyer and a preserver, with thick vines gripping the foundations of royal stables and administrative halls, holding the stones in a suffocating embrace. During the monsoon season, the gray granite turns dark and slick, reflecting the gloomy light of a sky that once looked down upon the busiest markets in Asia. The river Tungabhadra flows past the ruins just as it did 5 centuries ago. But its banks are no longer lined with ivory and silk, only with the collapsed remains of stone bridges and water tanks. Archaeologists continue to uncover new structures buried under layers of silt and roots, suggesting that the true extent of the city is far greater than what is currently visible on the surface. The silence of the site is heavy, broken only by the sound of tropical birds and the rustle of leaves against ancient masonry. Every courtyard and stepped tank serves as a reminder of a sophisticated water management system that was centuries ahead of its time, now filled with rainwater and fallen debris. The precision of the stonework is so advanced that even after 500 years of exposure to the elements, the joints between massive blocks remain tight enough to prevent the growth of moss in the cracks. It is a place where the boundary between the natural world and human ambition has completely dissolved, leaving behind a stone ghost town that defies the passage of time. One of the most inexplicable features of the site is the collection of musical pillars in the main complex, which are hollow stone columns that produce distinct rhythmic notes when tapped, though the exact method of their internal construction remains a secret of the ancient architects.
My boots press into the sand.
2,672 stone panels remained hidden beneath a suffocating layer of volcanic ash and tropical vines for nearly a millennium, creating a silent architectural ghost in the heart of the Indonesian jungle. Borobudur, located on the island of Java, stands as the largest Buddhist monument on the planet. Yet for 8 centuries, its existence was treated more as a local myth than a physical reality. The massive structure vanished from historical records around the 10th century, shortly after a devastating eruption of the nearby Mount Merapi blanketed the entire region in gray dust. As the population shifted and the cultural landscape of Java transformed through Islamization, the rainforest claimed the abandoned site, wrapping the terraces in roots and burying the intricate carvings under meters of soil. When the British governor, Thomas Stamford Raffles, heard rumors of a mountain of stones deep in the wilderness in 1814, he dispatched a team of 200 men who spent 6 weeks hacking through the dense vegetation just to reveal the upper tiers. The scale of what they uncovered defies easy explanation, as the monument is constructed from 2 million individual stone blocks fitted together without a single drop of mortar or cement. The landscape here is a dense sea of emerald green that once rose higher than the stone stupas themselves, swallowing the 504 statues of Buddha that sit in eternal meditation. During the initial excavations of the 19th century, archaeologists made a startling discovery that suggests the jungle was guarding even deeper secrets, as they found an entire hidden base known as the concealed footing. This lowest level contains an additional series of detailed reliefs that were intentionally covered with stones shortly after construction, perhaps to stabilize the massive weight of the structure or to hide specific depictions from view. The gray andesite rock of the temple contrasts sharply with the vibrant, humid forest that still attempts to reclaim the perimeter, where moss and lichen constantly threaten to dissolve the sharp lines of the carvings. Thousands of laborers originally shaped these volcanic stones, yet the jungle managed to erase their efforts from human memory so effectively that the site remained a literal hole in the map for generations. Even today, the surrounding valley of Kedu feels like a prehistoric basin where the mist clings to the treetops, obscuring the precise geometry of the temple until one is standing directly beneath its shadow. The sheer density of the vegetation explains why such a colossal achievement of engineering could remain invisible to the outside world, while empires rose and fell just a few dozen miles away. The recovery process required the removal of thousands of tons of earth, revealing that the forest had acted as a natural preservative, shielding the delicate stone surfaces from the erosion of tropical storms. Borobudur remains a testament to how quickly the natural world can overwrite human history, turning a massive religious center into a nameless hill covered in teak trees and ferns. The final clearing of the site in the early 20th century finally exposed the full extent of the monument, which occupies a base area of 123 square meters and rises through 9 distinct levels toward the sky. The discovery of the hidden base remains one of the great archaeological paradoxes of Southeast Asia. As it suggests, the builders themselves chose to bury their work, long before the jungle finished the task. "240 stone structures stood silent for nearly a millennium, buried so deeply under volcanic ash and tropical growth that locals believed the jagged peaks emerging from the earth were merely natural hills. Prambanan, a massive Hindu temple complex on the island of Java in Indonesia, vanished from human records in the 10th century, leaving behind a silence that lasted 900 years. While the primary towers now pierce the skyline again, the vast majority of this sacred city remains a chaotic field of scattered stones, reclaimed by the soil and roots long before the first modern explorers arrived. The sudden abandonment of such a monumental site remains one of the region's great historical puzzles, linked to a violent volcanic eruption of Mount Merapi or a rapid shift in political power that left the shrines to crumble in solitude. The sheer scale of the site is overwhelming, centered around 3 main shrines dedicated to the Trimurti, where the central temple of Shiva rises 47 meters into the air, a height that rivals the great cathedrals of Europe built centuries later. When systematic excavations finally began in 1918, archaeologists did not find standing monuments, but rather a landscape of debris where the jungle had literally swallowed the architecture, twisting roots through intricate bas-reliefs and toppling massive blocks of volcanic rock. The stone carvings tell stories of celestial battles and ancient epics, yet for centuries these silent witnesses were hidden in total darkness beneath the canopy. Even today, the reconstruction process feels like solving a planetary-scale jigsaw puzzle, as thousands of original stones lie in heaps across the plains, their original positions lost to time and the shifting earth. The dark, porous andesite stone gives the structures a somber, otherworldly appearance, especially when the tropical sun casts long shadows across the jagged silhouettes of the remaining towers. Scientists have noted that the foundation of the complex was designed with sophisticated drainage systems. Yet, even this engineering could not withstand the relentless pressure of the encroaching forest and seismic activity. The mystery deepens when considering that such a massive labor force and immense wealth were required to build these structures, only for the entire population to vanish almost overnight. Many of the smaller outer temples, known as pravara, are still nothing more than foundations covered in moss, waiting for their turn to be pulled back from the grip of the jungle. The contrast between the restored central spires and the surrounding ruins creates a haunting atmosphere of a civilization interrupted at its peak. Every stone slab recovered from the dirt contains a fragment of a lost ritual or a forgotten name. Yet the primary reason for the total exodus of the 10th century remains a subject of intense academic debate. What specific event forced a kingdom to leave 240 temples to the mercy of the vines? "10,000 golden spires once pierced the horizon of this dry plain, yet the civilization that raised them vanished in less than a single decade." Bagan sits in the heart of Myanmar, a vast architectural graveyard covering over 100 square kilometers, where the scale of construction defies the logic of the medieval world. Between the 11th and 13th centuries, this was the largest religious and cultural center on Earth, a city where stone and brick outlasted the memories of its inhabitants. Today, approximately 3,500 structures remain visible, but this number represents only a fraction of what once stood here. The rest have been reclaimed by the earth, swallowed by dense tropical scrub, or buried under centuries of silt and shifting soil. From a drone's perspective, the landscape looks like a chessboard of terracotta towers rising from a sea of green, ranging from massive pyramidal pagodas to tiny, crumbling shrines barely taller than a man. The sheer density of these ruins creates a surreal geometry, where every few steps reveal another entrance to a hollowed-out monument. Most of these buildings are now empty shells, their intricate stucco carvings worn smooth by the wind, and their internal chambers filled with the scent of dry dust and ancient brick. The red clay of the temples contrasts sharply with the pale, sun-bleached grass, creating a color palette that feels frozen in time. When the Mongol armies of Kublai Khan swept across these plains in 1287, they did not just conquer a capital. They triggered a total collapse that left a metropolis of hundreds of thousands of people to be slowly consumed by the jungle. Large sections of the city walls and wooden palaces have completely disappeared, leaving only the brick skeletons of the sacred district to testify to the former grandeur. Some foundations are so deeply overgrown that they appear as natural mounds, until a sudden rain washes away the topsoil to reveal precise masonry. The silence across the plain is heavy, broken only by the rustle of thorny bushes that now grow where royal processions once passed. Modern satellite imagery suggests that hundreds of additional foundations still lie hidden beneath the surface, forming a subterranean map of a ghost city that the forest continues to digest. The scale of the loss is difficult to measure because the jungle does not just hide the ruins, it physically dismantles them, as roots wedge into mortar and pull massive walls apart over centuries of quiet growth. Every crumbling archway and leaning tower serves as a silent witness to a moment when one of the most powerful empires in Asia simply ceased to exist, leaving its stone legacy to be slowly erased by the relentless advance of the wild. The dry heat of the Central Plains has mummified the city, preserving the red brick skeletons in a state of permanent decay, while the surrounding vegetation acts as a slow-motion tide. Scientists estimate that if the current rate of erosion and botanical encroachment continues, the smaller, undocumented shrines will completely merge with the landscape within the next century. This vast field of ruins remains a paradox of human ambition, where the effort of millions of workers resulted in a landscape that now belongs entirely to the earth and the silence of the trees. The city did not fall to a single catastrophe, but drifted into a long, slow sleep from which it never woke, leaving behind a labyrinth of brick that is gradually being pulled back into the dust from which it was made. Fragments of glazed tiles and broken terracotta still litter the ground between the larger monuments, marking the spots where smaller structures have already surrendered to the soil. The horizon is a jagged line of silhouettes that grow fainter with every passing monsoon, as the forest continues its patient work of reclamation. Even the largest temples, some rising over 60 meters into the air, show deep fissures where the roots of banyan trees have begun their inevitable descent toward the foundations. This is a place where the boundary between human architecture and the natural world has dissolved, leaving only a haunting expanse of red earth and encroaching green. History here is not recorded in books, but in the way the shadows fall across thousands of nameless ruins at sunset. The massive weight of 3,000 temples has not been enough to anchor this civilization to the present, leaving only a hollow stone echo in the middle of the forest. Records from the era of the Mongol invasion describe a city of gold. But today the only gold left is the light reflecting off the dust in the empty corridors of the few surviving giants. The vast majority of Bagan remains a mystery, a hidden map of streets and homes that the jungle has already successfully scrubbed from the face of the earth. In 2013, researchers directed laser pulses from a helicopter toward the dense green canopy of Phnom Kulen in Cambodia, and the reflection revealed the impossible. A massive, structured city where the ground appeared to be nothing but wild forest. This is the lost site of Mahendra Parvata, the 9th century cradle of the Khmer Empire that remained invisible to the human eye for over 1,000 years. While explorers had walked these slopes for decades, they saw only tangled vines and moss-covered stones, unaware that an entire urban grid lay beneath their boots. The LiDAR technology stripped away the vegetation in a digital map, exposing a sophisticated network of roads, canals, and temples spanning 35 square kilometers. Mahendra Parvata predates the famous spires of Angkor by 350 years, serving as the experimental blueprint for a civilization that would eventually dominate Southeast Asia. The plateau rises 485 meters above the surrounding plains, a sandstone massif that provided the very stone used to build the great monuments of the valley below. On the surface, the landscape is a chaotic mix of tropical broadleaf trees and hidden waterfalls. But the laser data shows a precision that defies the limitations of the early medieval period. Massive earthen embankments and artificial reservoirs prove that these ancient engineers reshaped the mountain itself to manage the heavy monsoon rains. The most enigmatic features are the hundreds of mysterious mounds arranged in geometric patterns, their purpose still debated by archaeologists who cannot reach them through the impenetrable undergrowth. Even the Cabal-Spian River, which flows through the park, holds secrets carved directly into its rocky bed, where thousands of symbols lie underwater, sanctifying the flow before it reaches the lowlands. The sheer scale of the discovery suggests that the Khmer Empire did not start as a small settlement, but as a fully realized, sprawling metropolis integrated into the rugged terrain of the sacred mountain. Sunlight barely reaches the forest floor here, creating a permanent emerald twilight that has guarded these ruins against looters and time alike. Vegetation has grown so deeply into the masonry that the roots and stones have become a single, inseparable substance. The discovery of Mahendra Parvata has fundamentally altered the timeline of regional history, proving that the jungle is not just a void, but a thick green curtain concealing the foundations of an empire. Every year, new scans reveal additional suburbs and hydraulic systems extending further into the uninhabited wilderness. The vast majority of these structures remain unexcavated, trapped in a subterranean world where the trees act as the only guardians of the past. Scientists estimate that what has been mapped so far is only a fraction of the total urban footprint hidden within the national park. The silence of Phnom Kulen is the silence of a tomb that refused to be found until technology evolved to see through the earth. Thousands of unidentified stone signals still wait in the deep shadows of the plateau. How can a sprawling medieval capital, adorned with golden-roofed palaces and lush royal gardens, simply dissolve into the shadows of a tropical forest for 600 years? This central mystery defines Polonnaruwa, the second capital of ancient Sri Lanka, which stood as a pinnacle of Asian urban planning before vanishing into the relentless greenery of the island. In the 13th century, following a series of devastating invasions from southern India, the city was abruptly abandoned by its inhabitants, leaving the sophisticated infrastructure to the mercy of the roots and vines. For centuries, the location of this once thriving metropolis remained a secret kept by the canopy, known only to local villagers who spoke of stone giants hidden in the brush. When British explorers first pushed through the dense undergrowth in the 19th century, they did not find streets or markets, but a wall of impenetrable vegetation that had swallowed entire temples whole. The scale of the reclamation is visible in the way massive fig trees have fused with the brickwork, their roots flowing like liquid stone over the entrances of forgotten shrines. In its 12th century prime, Polonnaruwa was a marvel of engineering, featuring a complex irrigation system known as the Sea of Parakrama, a vast man-made reservoir that regulated water for the entire region. The city was home to the council chamber, where massive stone pillars held up a multi-story wooden structure that has long since rotted away, leaving only the skeletal gray basalt standing amidst the ferns. The landscape is dominated by the Gal Vihara, where 4 colossal Buddha figures were carved directly into a single granite cliff face, their serene expressions emerging from the shadows of the teak trees. These statues remained untouched by time, while the city around them was buried under layers of silt and decaying leaves. Systematic excavations to peel back this emerald shroud did not begin until 1903, revealing that the jungle had preserved the city even as it tried to consume it. The red brick stupas, some rising over 50 meters into the humid air, still bear the scars of the forest, with moss covering the intricate carvings of moonstones and guard stones. Today, the site remains a silent labyrinth of gray stone and vibrant green, where the line between human architecture and natural growth has become permanently blurred. The collapse of the kingdom was so absolute that by the time the first archaeological surveys were conducted, the forest had raised the ground level by several meters, burying the lower floors of the royal palace in rich volcanic soil. Polonnaruwa stands as a testament to the speed at which nature reclaims its territory, turning a hub of 200,000 people into a silent graveyard of stone within a few generations. The city was officially rediscovered as a ruin, but for the trees that grow through its foundations, it was never lost, merely repurposed as a trellis for the wild. One of the intricate sandstone lintels from this lost temple reappeared in the Art Institute of Chicago, thousands of miles away from its original home. And it took decades of international pressure to return the stolen artifact to its rightful place. Phanom Rung Historical Park stands as a silent stone sentinel on the rim of an extinct volcano in the Buriram province of Thailand, where it remained hidden under a dense canopy of tropical vegetation for centuries after the collapse of the Khmer Empire. The architectural complex was designed to align perfectly with the solar cycle, creating a phenomenon where the sun shines through all 15 sanctuary doorways simultaneously, only 4 times a year. When the first explorers rediscovered the site, the pink sandstone walls were almost entirely obscured by massive roots and thick vines that had woven themselves into the very fabric of the masonry. The scale of the construction is immense, featuring a processional walkway paved with laterite and sandstone that leads to a magnificent cruciform platform guarded by stone nagas. The central sanctuary rises toward the sky like a petrified lotus bud, its surfaces covered in carvings so detailed they seem to pulse with life under the shifting shadows of the jungle. For hundreds of years, these corridors served as a sanctuary for wild animals and tropical flora, rather than priests or royalty, as the forest slowly reclaimed the volcanic slopes. The restoration process was an agonizingly slow endeavor that lasted 17 years, requiring engineers to dismantle and reassemble thousands of stones like a giant 3-dimensional puzzle to stabilize the structures. The volcanic rock foundation provided a natural elevation that made the temple visible from miles away once the surrounding trees were cleared, revealing a mountaintop city that had been erased from maps for generations. The precise geometry of the layout suggests a deep understanding of astronomy and engineering that seems out of place for a civilization that vanished without leaving a written record of why this specific site was abandoned. The legendary reclining Vishnu lintel, which was smuggled out of the country during a period of political instability in the middle of the 20th century, now sits back in its original position above the eastern entrance. Despite the extensive clearing of the site, the surrounding forest continues to press against the edges of the park, a constant reminder of how easily the jungle can swallow entire cities. The temple complex is built from a rare pinkish sandstone that changes color depending on the angle of the sun, shifting from a pale rose in the morning to a deep blood-red hue during the final moments of sunset. Archaeologists discovered that the site was occupied for nearly 300 years before it was suddenly and inexplicably vacated, leaving behind tools and unfinished carvings that suggest a hasty departure. Local legends speak of a hidden chamber beneath the volcanic crater that has never been mapped, a space where the heat of the earth was once believed to power the spiritual energy of the mountain. The entire complex is oriented exactly toward the east, ensuring that the first rays of light on the morning of the solar alignment pierce through every single chamber until they strike the central lingam. Even today, the precise methods used to transport massive sandstone blocks up the steep slopes of a volcano without modern machinery remain a subject of intense academic debate. The site serves as a rare example of a temple built on a natural elevation rather than an artificial mound, utilizing the rugged topography of the volcano to create a physical bridge between the earthly and divine realms. While the structures have been stabilized, the deep scars left by centuries of root growth are still visible in the cracked foundations and weathered facades. The most enigmatic feature of the site is a series of drainage channels carved into the solid rock that appear to have no functional purpose, leading researchers to believe they were used for ritual libations that have long been forgotten. The restoration team had to use specialized cranes to lift stones weighing several tons back into their precise historical positions, often discovering hidden inscriptions on the inner faces of the blocks. The silence that hangs over the volcanic rim is absolute, broken only by the sound of wind passing through the empty stone doorways that once echoed with the chants of thousands. Each stone in the main tower is held together by gravity and precise carving alone, without the use of mortar, a technique that allowed the building to survive the seismic shifts of the dormant volcano for a millennium. The pink sandstone used for the most sacred parts of the temple had to be quarried from a site over 30 kilometers away and hauled through dense marshland before ascending the crater. Recent laser scanning of the area has revealed traces of a much larger urban settlement surrounding the temple that remains completely buried under the modern forest floor. The specific alignment of the 15 doorways is so precise that even a deviation of a few centimeters would have rendered the solar phenomenon impossible. Yet the Khmer architects achieved this feat on the edge of a jagged volcanic rim. The lintel of the sleeping Vishnu, now restored to its frame, remains the only piece of the temple that has traveled around the world and back, carrying the secrets of a city that the jungle almost erased forever. "5,000 years of silence managed to disguise an entire civilization as a collection of ordinary desert mounds." In the Supe Valley of Peru, the sacred city of Caral remained hidden in plain sight for millennia, its massive stone structures so weathered and eroded that even seasoned archaeologists initially dismissed them as natural geological formations. It was not until 1994 that researchers realized these dusty hills were actually step pyramids, sunken circular plazas, and complex residential quarters belonging to the oldest urban center in the Americas. This discovery fundamentally altered the timeline of human history, placing the birth of Andean civilization at 3,000 years before the Common Era, making it a direct contemporary of the Great Pyramids of Giza and the earliest Sumerian cities in Mesopotamia. The site spans more than 160 acres of arid terrace, where the pale brown earth rises into 6 distinct stone platforms that once served as the beating heart of a sprawling trade network. Unlike the dense rainforest ruins found elsewhere, Caral is a skeleton of sand and rock, a skeletal remains of an empire that thrived without the use of ceramics or traditional grain agriculture. The sheer scale of the architecture suggests a highly organized social hierarchy, yet excavations have failed to uncover any evidence of warfare, defensive walls, or weapons of mass destruction. Instead of battlements, the city features vast public squares designed for acoustic resonance, where the wind whistles through intricate flutes carved from condor and pelican bones. The surface of the ruins is etched with the scars of time, showing how the desert wind has rounded the edges of massive basalt blocks until they blended seamlessly with the surrounding Andean foothills. Radiocarbon dating of woven reed bags used to transport stones finally confirmed the site's true age in 2001, forcing historians to rewrite the origins of complex society in the Western Hemisphere. The city was abruptly abandoned around 1800 years before the Common Era, likely due to a prolonged period of drought and seismic activity that choked the irrigation canals with sand. Today, the sun-bleached stones of the Central Pyramid rise nearly 20 meters above the valley floor, standing as a silent witness to a culture that mastered monumental construction long before the invention of the wheel. The absence of a written language leaves the purpose of its intricate stone knots and celestial alignments shrouded in mystery, leaving only the massive, wind-worn silhouettes to mark where the first American kings once ruled over the dust. Traces of human activity in these limestone labyrinths date back more than 30,000 years. Yet the most significant secrets of the region remain shielded by a dense emerald canopy until the turn of the 21st century. A wooden boat glides through a narrow water passage between towering karst cliffs, and suddenly the weathered stone walls of a 1,000-year-old temple emerge from the suffocating grip of the jungle. This is the Trang An landscape complex in Vietnam, a place where the distinction between geology and human history has been erased by centuries of isolation. While the world looked elsewhere, the ancient capitals of the 10th and 11th centuries, such as Hoa Lu, were slowly being reclaimed by the earth and the roots of tropical trees. The sheer verticality of the landscape served as a natural fortress, protecting the early Vietnamese dynasties from invasions and simultaneously hiding their architectural triumphs from the modern eye. Massive stone gates and intricate pagodas stand in silence, their surfaces covered in thick moss and creeping vines that have become an inseparable part of the structure. The scale of the abandonment is difficult to grasp until one sees the way the jungle has filled every courtyard and choked every corridor of what was once a seat of imperial power. These ruins are not merely leftovers of a fallen kingdom, but are layers of civilization stacked upon each other, stretching back to the late Pleistocene era, when prehistoric humans first sought shelter in these very caves. The darkness of the subterranean passages still holds the charcoal remains of ancient fires and discarded shells from meals eaten tens of millennia ago. In 2014, the site was recognized by UNESCO as a dual heritage property because the cultural narrative is so deeply embedded in the natural karst formations. The mystery lies in how such a massive urban and spiritual center could vanish so completely into the green shadows of Ninh Binh. Stone bridges lead to nowhere, and staircases carved directly into the rock face disappear into impenetrable thickets of bamboo and fern. The humidity and the relentless growth of the forest have softened the sharp edges of the pagodas, making them look like natural outgrowths of the mountains themselves. Each seasonal flood deposits new layers of silt over the sunken foundations, further burying the evidence of the people who once navigated these waterways to reach their secluded mountain shrines. Exploring Trang An requires navigating a silent world, where the only sound is the rhythmic dip of an oar and the occasional cry of a bird hidden in the canopy. The ancient Vietnamese architects chose this location for its invisibility, and the jungle has honored that choice by keeping the ruins of Hoa Lu a secret for nearly a millennium. It is a destination that demands a slow journey by water, to witness the moments where the stone of the earth and the stone of the ancestors finally become one.